Ngowi TV, informed economists and business perspective.
Bearing in mind the time frame, so I would like to invite questions and comments from the audience, and that can be directed towards any of the panelists, and also to the team that presented the tax fiscal changes.
Good morning. Thank you for the night session. It has been really well informing and well summarized budget speech of yesterday. Professor Ngowi quickly presented or mentioned something to do with the GDP growth rate of 6.87%, and that is according to the National Bureau of Statistics. But of course, there is a different growth rate according to the IMF. Now, we all know that GDP is among the measures to gauge the health of the country's economy. And the majority of foreign investors are looking at the GDP as well for them to bring money into the country, investing in a company. So you find that many multinational companies, if not most of them, are actually also looking at their growth rate, benchmarking against the GDP growth rate. Now, with the foreign investors, there is a source, kind of an independent source, which they rely on in terms of making the investment decisions. Of course, not only looking at the GDP, but among other factors as well for the macroeconomic environment in a certain country they want to put their money in. Now, what do you think are the reasons for the variances between these two, if I can call sources of data for the macroeconomic environment? Is it the methodology that has been used, or is it the base they have taken in terms of determining the growth rate, or is it the various factors that they've looked at, and all these have differed, hence the different view in terms of the GDP growth rate? And what's your take? What is the correct GDP growth rate, do you think, among these two? Thank you. And I'm Hilda Bujiko from Vodacom. Thank you.
For sure, I will not give my figure. There is a statistics bill, I have to adhere to it. On a more serious note, I think for sure we understand really having the role of GDP and GDP figure for various decision making. I did a lot of FDI and determinants of FDI. I understand issues of GDP, Forex, etc., are very central. Now, I think you have answered everything, you know, the differences, because you understand, and I think there was a case with the IMF and the World Bank, and the government. What I understand is, I think they would reconcile. Now I'm not sure whether they have reconciled, you know. So really differences could be, as you have said, could be methodology, could be source of data, could be the base. Now, of course, now the question is, why now? You know, have we changed the methodology? Have we changed the source of data? Really, I have the same questions that we are having. And unfortunately, I don't have answers. Maybe someone around, if you know, one knows exactly why we are having these differences. One saying 7, one saying it's 4, you know, that kind of stuff. But really, I think it's relatively normal to have variances across these figures. And not only on growth, we even see sometimes, you know, when it comes to not only country-specific growth, even at global level. You know, sometimes for example, we saw in the US when it came to issues of rating, where poor standards will give this rating, and then the government will say, no, we are not all that much bad. So I think really it's normal to have these different views, not only on GDP. We have seen this in rating, where, you know, the rating agencies, poor standard and others, would give a rating to a country, and a country, if it's not good for the country, a country would object. I'm not sure. We may rate Voda, and Voda will be saying, no, we are better than this, you know. I've seen even situation in Tanzania where we have been seeing, you know, the rating of the richest men here and women, and someone say, no, I'm not all that much poor, and another one said, you know, I'm not all that rich. So differentials in data really are quite common. So, but then to tell the truth, I don't know which is the correct figure, because I've not done my own data, and I'm not in a position to do, you know, my own data. There is a statistics bureau bill that I have to adhere to. Sorry.
I think those numbers National Bureau of Statistics does have the numbers, and IMF does have the numbers. So, and those are two different institutions. And certainly, as Professor said, we have to adhere to the country laws and regulations. But you as a private sector, as you do your analysis, you certainly have to be conscious of those differences and make the right decisions.
Thank you. My name's Bartholomew Mroso from Salaam-Tanzania. I'll pose a question to Professor Ngowi for her opinion. I was listening to the budget, and yes, I was impressed. There are a couple of propositions to improve like fishing, like having big boats in Victoria, Tanganyika, Nyasa, and whatever. Yes, but within agriculture, which we keep on saying is our backbone, where it drives the rest of what we do in the economy. I was trying to think if the government really could also look into trying to have special zones or agricultural areas where maybe we can not only just depend on rainfall, like developed areas whereby people can lease and cultivate, and we get produces around the clock, 24/7, 365. Do you think that would work to improve our agriculture and our economy towards what we see as our development goals?
If I'm allowed to subcontract, actually I'll subcontract this question. Allow me to subcontract it to Professor Nyange. He is an expert in agriculture, and I do recognize the role of specialization and job division. Moderator, if you allow me, I would ask Professor Nyange to answer this one.
Sure.
He is more informed than me. But of course, I know, I would have always, there have been issues of irrigation and irrigation space. And yesterday I had a comment somewhere that I would have loved to see more effort on rainwater harvesting. Rainwater harvesting, budget addressing rainwater harvesting issues in terms of, let's say, incentives, for example, for rainwater harvesting equipment, tax breaks, etc. I personally do that. I think now people know, I'm harvesting 3.2 million liters of water just in Dar es Salaam. And I can feed the whole of Arusha for 2 days, Now, if you allow me to subcontract it to Professor Nyange, please.
Overall, I would say, I've been trying to reflect on yesterday's budget with reference to previous 3 budgets. And the key question is, are we making progress? And how can we measure such progress? And I'll refer to some of the issues that have been raised earlier. One of the yardstick, of course, is growth. In terms of growth, is the budget going really to spur growth? But also, secondly, will budget really stimulate inclusive growth, which, of course, agriculture is part of it? But most importantly, will the budget also be an instrument to catalyze the transformation? I know a lot of discussion has been on growth and on poverty reduction, but limited discussion when it comes to transformation. So in general, my answer to those 3 questions is, we are making some progress, but we're also facing some challenges. When it comes to fiscal reforms, looking at the last 3 years and this year, I think we are making some progress with a lot of changes, reduction of some prohibitive taxes, elimination of nuisance taxes, fees and charges. I think in that area we are making such a good progress. But where the challenge remains is when it comes to regulatory reforms, and I think that's very much reflected in the doing business. And I would say, as far as the Ministry of Finance is concerned, I think they've tried to do a lot, based on the last 4 budgets. But the challenge comes into regulatory reforms, which mainly has to be implemented by sector ministries. I think that's a really binding constraint. When it comes to over-regulation, overlap of roles of various regulatory authorities. If you look at that business, the proposal for reforming the business environment, particularly on regulation, you see there are almost 200 regulatory agencies. In agriculture alone, there are 50. So then there's need for a really comprehensive reforms to make sure that there's no duplication of effort, and also to make the regulatory reform much simpler.
My name is Isaac Shaw. I'm a banker with the CRDB Bank. I have one appreciative comment on yesterday's minister's speech, and that is, if you look at the trend at which the government is trying to befriend the business community. Last year we had a move where the government introduced the matching IDs as a step to recognize the informal business sector. Yesterday we heard the minister say that no one should close someone's business except the commissioner. See? So it shows that the government wants to see more shops opened, the government wants to see more companies opened, the government wants to see more people doing business, more people transacting, more people trying to do something. I think it's a positive move, and it shows that the government is trying to recognize that now everybody has a role to play in building the economy.
My name is Moses Raymond, a human capital consultant, and my question goes to Professor Ngowi. Prof has brought up something very interesting and of value to the country, whereby he talked about the lack of soft skills in this country and in our academic institutions and our curriculums. And him being the man of academics, and him being a man who has a great influence in our country's academics processes and institutions, what have you done so far, or what are you doing now, or what should we expect from you to help us from what you're suffering now? Because soft skill is missing, and we need that so that we can move one step ahead from where our curriculum has brought us up to this point. Thank you.
For sure, yes. On soft skills, really, we have been blamed, those of us who are trainers, who are training. And of course, if you want to protect ourselves, we would say, for example, yes, I'm principal to Mzumbe University Dar es Salaam campus, where we have only master's programs, and I would say, I take these students when they come from undergraduate already without soft skills. So ask those who are training at undergraduate level. You take them, they say, no, I get them the way they are from secondary school. Go and ask the secondary school teacher. Secondary school say, I get theirs from primary school without soft skill. And at primary schools, they say, I get them this way from parents. Go and ask the parents, you know. So you could see, at the end of the day, we cannot run away from this. What we are trying to do at, I think, several places, but in Mzumbe University specifically, we are having programs called University Industry Linkages, where we have actually, like now, I had a talk, I don't know whether it's here, at the Association of Tanzania Employers, where I've invited Ate, Dr. Mulimunka specifically, to come and talk to my staff, my people, you know, on the soft skills that are needed in the world of work. Yes, we produce maybe best MBAs, you know, accountants, auditors, people in the procurement, but really we have recognized that the industry is saying they do not have enough soft skills, including, you know, teamwork, team spirit, perseverance, all kind of stuff. So really for us, university industry linkages, where we review our curricula and you know, we do it in a participatory way. Instead of closing ourselves in our office, we get input from the industry as one of those ways where we can at least, you know, increase those soft skills. And of course, personally, I've done quite a number of studies. I was once at Dakar, Senegal, Codestria Council for Development of Social Science Research in Africa, trying to see now how university industry linkage can actually work. Because it takes two to tango. You know, the private sector, once we ask you for inputs, you know, we expect you to give ones. You know, we have just signed MOU, Mzumbe University, with TCIA, Tanzania Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, on quite a number of issues, and I believe one of those will be, you know, TCIA, and of course by extension maybe TPSF, telling us, what do you want us to train on our people, on top of accounts, economics, engineering and stuff, on soft skills. What is it really that we need? We might not be the best ones to train, but then I know there are people here who are better suited to train on soft skills than, you know, than even those of us who are like I've done economics throughout my life, but to some extent, with my gray hair, I know a little bit on team building, I know a little bit on endurance, I know a little bit on hard work, and stuff. So I think we are trying to do something, and I'm sure in the room there are quite a number of people who are very well on these issues. We have what we call now HR breakfast, and I see one of my colleagues who come at Mzumbe. I think we planned it to be a monthly thing, where they come and tell it as off. That the people that we are bringing in terms of HR, yes, they have the paper, but they don't have the soft skills. So you are welcome all to Mzumbe to inform us on how we improve our curricula. Thank you.
My name is Emmanuel Macha. I'm a consultant. And I would like to point out a place which I think has been left on the budget, and the people who work deep on that, like the lady who presented the tax issues and Professor Ngowi, can assist me if it's true it has been left, because to my view it has been left. And this is regarding to VAT registration. It wasn't maybe brought to the attention because when the president called the business community, he called the top 5. And so the SMEs were left. And the challenge exists on the SMEs. Because when you reach the VAT threshold, a point where you are supposed to register for VAT, is when there is a problem. Take, for example, you are all producing edible oil, and you are not VAT registered. So you sell your oil the same price. But when you reach a threshold, maybe 20 million, you are supposed to register for VAT. And then you have to add 18% at your price. And that makes your product expensive than the other person who is not registered. And that kills a lot of industries developing from small to medium. So please give me your experience on this. People who, Professor Ngowi maybe, and the lady who presented tax issues there regarding this, and if you saw it as a challenge also, and how can it brought to the budget so it can be addressed, because I meet with a lot of SMEs who are complaining about this.
I can comment on that. So when you graduate into VAT registration thresholds, it's obvious that now you are facing those teething issues. So unfortunately, there is no framework that say provide relief in that particular aspect, because now you have graduated from presumptive, for example, tax rates to now corporate tax rates. I think in the current year budget, what we've seen is trying to increase that thresholds to 100 million, if I'm correct. Yeah, and well, I think that's an issue that needs to be taken care in Chamber of Commerce, and also with the local representative to try to provide feedback back to the government in terms of addressing the transition from small to medium sized. The first effort the government does was to increase the thresholds now to 100. Yeah. So unfortunately, that can be the feedback that need to go back to the parliament as they go through this discussion of the budget before the bill is enacted.